Okay, so now let's talk matters education. We're going to start with Alan Thompson, who is the Deputy President of the National Teachers Union, NATU. You know that the Department of Basic Education yesterday was to have a briefing to outline, issues around schools reopening and all those issues. So it was supposed to take place yesterday. So it was shelved, that briefing, on the resumption of schools and their plans. So let me start with you, Mr. Thompson. I'm sure you were part of it. You're one of the key stakeholders there. You represent teachers. What is the situation? What is happening? Why was this briefing shelved? What are you discussing there? Is there a lot of gaps? Are you not finding each other?
Well, good morning, Bongi, and good morning to SAfm listeners. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say perhaps I know exactly what are the reasons and the motives behind the rescheduling of the media briefing that was scheduled for the 27th of April. But what I can say is that on the 26th of April, we were able to have a very long consultative meeting with the minister, of which is something that we appreciate, because since the country is still in the national state of disaster, as NATU with other trade unions are in a constant communication with the ministers about the reopening of schools and institutions of higher learning. What is important is that I know that even before we had a meeting with the minister was having another meeting to consult different stakeholders. So one will assume that perhaps after the submission that we have made and that were made by other stakeholders, there were a lot on the minister's plate to consider, of which is something that we definitely appreciate, because remember, we do not want a catastrophic effect should the minister take an immature decision, perhaps of opening schools when we do not have systems in place. I cannot also say there were a lot of disagreement, except that we were just discussing about what needs to be put in place before we can consider opening the schools, and perhaps what kind of sections of the department will have to consider opening. But the decision of opening the school is in the hands of the minister, the hands of the cabinet, because they are the ones who will have, at the end of the day, to account to the members of society about the decision. Should they take an immature decision, it will be very catastrophic. That is what we are saying. But as the National Teachers Union, what we have been consistently raising is that we have to follow whatever decision must be guided by the Department of Health. They need to assess and evaluate whatever strategies we are coming up with. But what is the key to us is that when schools are reopened, it's very, very important and fundamental that we should be able to observe the social distancing in our classroom. Especially, we know that our classes, more especially the township schools, the rural schools, we've got 80 minimum learners, 70 learners in one class. So which means whatever decision we take, we must have mechanism to say, how are we going to spread learners in the school and make sure that we observe the social distancing.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Alan Thompson is the Deputy President of the National Teachers Union, NATU. So what are you telling your members now, Mr. Thompson?
Well, we want our members to know that with over 4,500 confirmed coronavirus cases nationally, our understanding is that the risk of learners, teachers, and other employees in education is higher now than it was when the schools were ordered to close. Now, what is important to us is that should we make a wrong decision to open schools prematurely, what is likely to happen is that schools will become the new epicenter for propagating new infections. And we want our teachers to stand ready, think about methods that can be utilized to make sure that when the time is right, we are able to teach the learners everything that is supposed to be taught, because one of the things that we are doing behind the scene is to look at the curriculum, that what are the things that needs to be trimmed off the curriculum. But we cannot rush into trimming of curriculum and implementation of the curriculum at the expense of the lives of our own members. So we are saying to our members, they must stay at home, they must relax, they must concentrate on preparing their work in advance. Should the minister announce that schools will be reopened, they must be able to come to the school ready to teach with everything that they have. We have done it before. We are convinced that we can still do it. But what we cannot compromise is to see a teacher being exposed in a classroom with 80 learners. That is why we are saying we must find a way of reducing classes. We must add teachers, employ more teachers. We must get people who will come and sanitize the area. We must make sure that the entire place is safe for learners. It's also safe for teachers, like it is the case with Denmark, which was the first country in the Europe to open the schools. If you check there, the maximum class is having 12 learners. We know it cannot be the case with us. But the distance between two desks in that country is 1.8 meters. Learners are not allowed to talk to more than two fellow learners in the classroom, and during break, they are not allowed to be more than three as a group. That's the group that they are supposed to be. So those things we need to learn from them and try to put them in our own system so that you can save lives.
Alan Thompson, thank you very much, Deputy President of the National Teachers Union. Thanks for the correction. We're just confirming with Mr. Thompson if indeed he's president, because the latest article that came through puts him as the Deputy President of NATU. So we will apologize to him and we will correct it. So you're saying that he is not, or he is president. So we've just confirmed with him that he's president. So we apologize, Mr. Alan Thompson. You are the president of NATU, not the deputy president. Our sincerest apology there, Mr. Thompson, the president of the National Teachers Union, NATU. It's 11 o'clock now.